It's okay. We can just, I'll introduce. Sorry. I have to do a little bit of introduction.
Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Today, wait, this one. Okay, so I'm actually both the moderator for this panel as well as this afternoon, so I'm a little bit busy here. Excuse me for that. Okay, so this panel is on the financial innovation in the age of Web3, and we're proud to have with us today 5 wonderful panelists here. Now, let me introduce one by one, and at the same time, I also want to really extend our great appreciation to all the sponsors of today's event. Because as you know, actually this is not a free event, and we are honored to have these panelists. At the same time, we really appreciate these sponsors for helping us. So first of all, MoDAO is one of the sponsors today. So MoDAO is a Singapore-based developer community to empower talent in the blockchain space, connect builder entrepreneurs, and facilitate collaboration efforts. So MoDAO has been organizing many crypto events as well as blockchain tutorials, hands-on workshops in the past 1 year or so. So please welcome MoDAO. And then we have our Bybit. Bybit is also our sponsor. Now, Bybit is the world's 3rd most visited crypto exchange platform, providing secure, friendly experience with tools and products of all types of traders. Established in 2018, it offers a professional platform where crypto traders can find an ultra-fast matching engine, excellent customer service, and multilingual community support. Okay, so Bybit. And then we also have Alibaba Cloud as our sponsor. And Alibaba Cloud, as we all know, is a global leader in cloud computing and AI space. As a cloud space is the #1 in APAC, #3 in the world, and there are 88 zones strategically located around 29 regions in the world. In January 9, 2023, Alibaba Cloud established International Competence Center here in Singapore. Okay, let's welcome Alibaba. And finally, we have our KNN3 as our sponsor. Now, KNN3 is a one-stop Web3 user-centric data-fi solution. Okay, data-fi solution for the app and a smart contract. KNN3 allows the app and a smart contract to interact with cross-platform user-centric data in algo-friendly ways. Okay, so let's, without further ado, let's start with today's panel. And myself, I'm Prof. Feida Zhu. I'm from Singapore Management University and also Associate Dean in Partnership and Engagement. My research has been around crypto, blockchain, privacy-aware computation, AI, and data asset governance. So very happy today to moderate this panel. All right, now to start with, I'd like each panelist to very, very briefly, maybe just 1 or 2 minutes, to introduce your background, your business, so that we know more about yourself. Now, Haidong.
So, hello everybody, I'm Haidong from Alibaba Cloud. I'm a solution architect for AIGC and Web3 innovative solutions. I'm here representing the Singapore Innovation Accelerator to have more discussion and exploration with all the guests today and friends.
Thank you. This is Wilson, so I'm leading the Asia growth market for Avalanche. So people sometimes will ask, like, what's the differentiation between Ava Labs and Avalanche? Ava Labs is the company, so basically it's the software company behind, and Avalanche is our protocol, so it's the platform running all the apps on top. So we're working on a couple of aspects. Now we have so many sectors. We have DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, Metaverse, institution, enterprise. So I foresee the next big wave it should come in a more sector rotation kind of perspective. We're gonna move into next very important enterprise grade kind of adoption stage. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm part of Bybit. I'm an advisor for them. I look after government relations, and I did a fair bit of a partnership with Red Bull. So I started my journey in 2017. Wrote a couple of books, constantly giving different advice to different government. I just came back from Turkey, so I'd love to share more with all of you. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Martha. I built StarryNift. It's a metaverse where people can socialize with friends. You can play lots of large games and trade your NFTs. And right now we're building our own AIGC space and some AI agency. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Thomas Yu from KN3. I'm the founder of KN3. And we are a multi-chain data and computation middle layers for Web3 developers to build a more advanced DApps and smart contract applications. So basically, we're providing a whole set of solutions to bring like a KN3, which is one of the supervised learning algorithm and all the others options into Web3. So you can build your recommendation system or a search engine. And now we also allows you to build a conversational chatbot or applications to access directly to the on-chain data. So our vision is bring the emerging technology like cloud and artificial intelligence and a large language model into the Web3 use case. Thank you.
We only have one mic today, so again, illustrate how decentralization is important. So as you can see, we really have a very great panel today. We have people from infrastructure, cloud service, data analysis, metaverse, and our advisor from Bybit. All right, so and today we have a few keywords here. If you look at the title, right, we have Web3, we have AI, we have financial innovation. Now, first of all, I think Web3 nowadays is really a very hot buzzword. I still clearly remember more than 15 years ago when I was still in my PhD days in the US, I heard about Web 2.0, right? At that time in 2005, when YouTube, if you guys would recall, was acquired by YouTube, YouTube was acquired by Google with $1.6 billion. And at that time, starting from then, people all realized there was such a thing called Web 2.0. And you can upload your personal data onto the web so that millions of people around the world can access it. And from there, we now have the two-way interactive data on the internet. And then we see the last 15 years of all the business boom and all the business model change, which have all this great time. But up to now, we have actually realized there is a bottleneck, there are many pain points, so that's why we need Web 3.0 to actually help us to achieve what Web 2.0 has not achieved. All right, so today we are going to center around that topic, but it's a very casual discussion, just relax. Okay, so first question, I would like to actually start with Web3, okay? So how is Web3, you think, is reshaping the current existing financial service that you can, in your domain, or you can feel about? And what's the unique opportunity or challenges that is present for your domain of business?
So from our point of view, I think the biggest change we have right now is the removal of the intermediary. So with the Web3 and with the decentralized finance happening, the intermediary has been quite removed from the past. For example, in the past, in the traditional area, we have the clearinghouse, we have all these. But however, in the Web3, we just no longer need this, and these are a very good opportunity of enhanced efficiency of transaction. And secondly is the DeFi, which is quite popular. So this also provide the opportunity of lending and borrowing and all these. And most importantly, the permissionless or the embedded in the code of authoritarian and compliance. All these are no longer being so costly. The cost of the compliance work and audition will be so much reduced. So that's something we've seen and quite impactful to our business.
Okay, I think there are a couple of key aspects we're looking at. If we look at the change from Web 1 to Web 2, it's still informative level. That means the adoption into Web 1 and Web 2, as Professor mentioned, it's a slow graduation adopt into Web 2. So the Web 3 is totally different. So we change from Web 2 to Web 3 is a differentiation between the informative layer to the asset layer. So we see including NFTs and DeFi's adoption. So it basically is a huge jump into Web 3. Then the Web 2 and Web 3 start to converge. So this is a huge difference between Web 2, Web 1, and Web 3 adoption. And then in terms of financial sectors, so when you have the ownership and asset layer, this transfer become much easier. So today, if you transfer $1 of USDC or USDT to another person, definitely is much faster than transferring from a bank, unless they have a direct banking relationship. But if, say, for example, if you're using a Deutsche Bank to transfer some money to Hong Kong, maybe they need an intermediary bank, then it's just much more complicated. It takes a couple of days for transfer. So the whole asset layer of infra in Web3 that solves the whole problem at the base layer. So that's a huge differentiation, as Professor mentioned. And then the challenge, I think, at this moment, it's the mass adoption. So people will talk about mass adoption. So I think the mass adoption comes in, it's not totally in the Web3 direction. So I think we will converge into a kind of like a Web 2.5 kind of things in the middle. And then, so the Web3 guys is helping the Web 2 guys, like they're putting their hands to inviting the Web 2 and Web 1 guys coming in. And then the Web 1 and Web 2 guys are coming into Web 3. So that's one. So the second challenge is I would say the old money fighting with the new money. So if you see how Gary plays around, so in that ways, behind the scene, I can see is the old money and new money's fight. That will also be a challenge behind the scene.
Thank
you. I see this from a more Web3 perspective, because if you can see it from banking and finance viewpoint, is more about using the blockchain technology to do all the different clearing and so forth. But if you look at it from a more Web3 perspective, it is actually empowering users and giving the power back to the different users to let them make certain decisions, right? Whether you want to think that you are a bank, whether you want to think that you have the ability to make overseas transfers without much intermediaries. I think that should be the way you look at how Web3 is evolving. It is not exactly true that Web3 is all about the native crypto people. You know, it's never like this. In fact, if you look at it from a Web3 perspective, many of the centralized exchanges are putting forth Web3 integration into their platform. You know, it is a good way to include more people, you know, within the whole financial system. You know, let them have more power and more decision to make some investments, you know, in it per se. So centralized exchanges are already moving towards that direction. And maybe I'll quote another example. I was in Dubai maybe 3 months ago. You know, I was talking to one of the biggest private banks in the world. They were telling me that, you know, they are looking at DeFi. You know, it's no longer things like, oh, I'm a traditional money, I'm not going to touch, you know, what crypto is doing. We are not going to enter the Web3 space. You know, in fact, they are putting some efforts in to come out with some sort of fund, like a VC fund, you know, in a more crowdfunding aspect. You know, in my layman words, it's more crowdfunding aspects. But at the same time, they are still taking the kind of commission, or they take the kind of incentive out from that pool. You know, and these things are driven by traditional banks. And I'm very sure that this will happen very soon and very fast. You know, thanks.
Okay, following other panelists' viewpoint, I just want to give some very concrete examples of my company. It's a very small staff. We only have 20 people, but we're based in more than 10 countries and cities. If in the past, if you open bank account in every country, you can consider how troublesome it is. But right now, we can just give USDC, USDT. It's very easy, and people can exchange this money in different countries. But meanwhile, sometimes you need to manage the risk. Even it's so-called stable coins. Sometimes people FUD USDT, sometimes they FUD USDC. If you don't manage it well, maybe you lose money, considering about the exchange rate. And another example is that when we do Metaverse, we have NFTs. Compared with tokens, NFTs have limited liquidity. So sometimes people become hodl even they don't want to. Later on, we have BanderDAO where you can borrow and lend NFTs as collateral. You can also use Blur where actually there are more flippers rather than holders. Some people call it a marketplace, but I think it's more like a financial product. Some people think, oh, it destroy NFT because these people only trade floor price, they don't care about the real design. But actually, I think it's in long run, it's good. Different people can have different choice. You want to trade it like a gambler, or you want to hold it as a collector. It's all your choice. So that's why I think Web3 is really promising. Although there are lots of challenges, but more opportunities are there. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to add one more use case. So I think there are a huge potential value for the future Web3 is the power of interoperability. So Web3 or the open ledger is more like a free domain for applications talking to each other and integrate their core business values into each other. For example, think about that. So one day, if you are a big KOL on the social graph like Lens or CyberConnects, and once you are a reputable KOL, you are able to come to a credible credit define to loan a number of money, and you can literally use it in the Visa or MasterCard, or you can do the staking on the MakerDAO, or you can use it to buy some items in the GameFi. It's very hard to think about that in the traditional world, and this is one of the good examples for interoperability. My point is, like, when we talk about socialify, gamify, mining fines, we only think about, okay, let's bring this NFT, or let's bring this game implemented on blockchain. That's not a fine process. The fine process is incorporated the financial key capabilities into your existing business. So I think one of the cutting point is to found the value of the interoperability with other applications on the same blockchain.
Thank you for that nice sharing. Now, talking about AI, right? I mean, Web3, we already have one round of good sharing, and of course nowadays, if you look at all our talks center around this AI, because this AI for fintech. Now, what do you think about AI in particular from your perspective, right? I mean, has the recent rise of AI has changed anything, or has some impact, or do you see what's the opportunities of AI in particular in your business?
So I think the most biggest part for us is the security as well as the efficiency. As we all know, the most efficient and famous is Midjourney and ChatGPT, which means the content you're generating is from these machine or AI algorithm, and which means the amount of the content will be flooding. And about the security of about the content security, content compliance, and all these will be a question. So first, it comes with the opportunity of there will be more value generated from the AIGC, from the contents. And second is the security and compliance issue, like who will be doing this compliance, how will we do the compliance, and what risk will it pose to the community. Especially, will there be a day that the content is flooding and all the high value targets are being shared by these flooded machine generated contents? And also, most importantly, the attacks, cyber attacks, So we are facing huge amounts of Web2 DDoS, SQL injection excesses, Web2 attacks, and also as well as we are also facing the Web3 attacks like zero-day, like flash loan, and all these will be later on generated. These attack codes will be generated by AI, not by human. So you no longer need a human to write the attack code. They're just generating there and attacking you. So I think the opportunity and the risk are posing together, and both efficiency and the risk are coming together. Efficiency in terms of content generation, and the risk in terms of cybersecurity and in terms of the value of the content. Yeah, that's it.
I see a change of the resources, storage, and computing power coming from different stages. If you look at historically, we start with maybe menu counting, then you start with different kind of tools, then become computers, calculators, all these things. So I think in terms of calculating power, we're always improving. The second thing, if you see, actually, human to human, the biggest barrier is storage, language, and communication. So I talk to you about A, B, and C, probably you only get A.5. So language actually is a very difficult thing to understand each other. But in terms of human and machines, like human are very good at certain things, but we are unable to calculate that a large amount of size that computer are calculating. But computer, maybe they're good at doing that, but there's some parts that human can do, but the machine can't do. So there's pros and cons from there. So I believe this is just another upgrades of the calculation powers, knowledge, and resources. So in the past, we also see that happen before, when you don't have a computer, but then now you have a computer, so a lot of calculation that speed it up. You don't need to remember all the things, you can use a search function, and now probably you don't have to draft a proposal, but the AI helps you to draft a proposal. So I think it's a natural progression of the calculation powers, knowledge, and storage in that phase. So impacting our industry is that I think the best practice is just leverage our knowledge and resources to take the most advantage of it. So I believe it's a similar thing if you see TikTok. If you just keep on falling into the trap of the machines, then the machine knows you like dogs and cats. So when you're finding the content, it's always falling into that trap. So I think that thing's gonna similar happen to AI. So I think you just need to practice yourself to know what kind of search function that will be helpful for that. Coming back to our industry, in this year, in early May, we had our Avalanche Summit in Spain. So we also announced that we are also building to the large language model that for programming on top of Avalanche blockchain. So we're in the process of developing that. So I think in the future, when people are building the apps on top of Avalanche, that will be much easier and much safer.
Wow, looking forward to that.
This, first of all, I strongly believe that AI is very efficient, So I hold a PhD in productivity science. So I work with different research labs and so forth to look at different behavior, coming out from this ChatGPT era. It's 100% more productive. It is a lot more efficient. But then, like my dear friend Wilson mentioned, it is not something that could replace human being. I know of companies who will say that, let's get rid of the PR person, use the ChatGPT to replace them to write the articles. But the kind of error that is on each of the article will actually make you crazy. If you are a writer, you will realize that ChatGPT or AI-powered kind of writer is not perfect. You will spend a lot more time to try to correct them, bit by bit, and that is really something that is really annoying. So coming back to the industry, from a Bybit perspective, we have a trade GPT. We use AI to give our users correct, up-to-date data. that that they can use as a form of reference when they try to do their trades. These can actually help them as a good reference source. You know, you can look at the chart, you look at it from trading view, after which you look at our Trade GPT, they gave you the same signal. Most likely, you know, that kind of data is very valuable, you know, for some of these retail investors. So I think AI, you know, on our end helps with productivity, also helps with the whole trading experience. You know, so if you have not tried it, you know, please take a look from a more technology perspective. Take a look, try it. There's a lot of new things that you can experience, you know, from a centralized platform telling you what to do using the AI prompts and so forth. I think this is just the next level.
I think AI changed Metaverse a lot. This year we sell a bunch of NFTs. Actually, it's designed by Midjourney rather than our people. And I have to fire several designers, I'm sorry for that, but to recruit more prompt engineer. For example, last year for one space, we take a month from pictures to 3D models to other engineering. This year, we use something like Skybox. Users just put in several words, it generates the whole space background.
Are they cheaper? Prompt engineering, are they cheaper than the designer?
Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
it's like this. Yeah. That's why I think it's a trend, inevitable. We have to embrace it. Definitely, I agree. We need to pay attention. Like sometimes, I even try to use ChatGPT to write roadmap for our company. I realize something not very good, but I think it will be getting better. So our own company designed to build a small team to train some models, especially in crypto world. Maybe we can train some data, then we can provide more alerts for on-chain investment, etc.
Okay, yeah. Well, actually, my marketing team was very nervous about ChatGPT to replace their work, but now they're very, very comfortable with working together with ChatGPT, writing articles. So I think this is the process that most people getting adapted to the new technology. I just want to add some excitement here. So I guess many of you know how to code or engineering background, right? So you must try to let ChatGPT write code for you, right? It's very convenient, but not perfect sometimes. So if you try the latest GPT-4 version, then have the code interpreter to tell you what the code means or what's the logic interpret, and also it also integrate a Python sandbox to literally run in the Python for you and tell you the the outcome or even the error log. This is a very strange moment, because think of that. So if you are using ChatGPT writing code, and then you copy and paste the code into your compiler and copy and paste the error into the ChatGPT, and ChatGPT debug for you and go the whole cycles here. The work you're doing are actually three, right? First, define the goal of the program. Second, be a benchmark to say, okay, is this the direction of the approximation is my direction? And third, you are a copy-paste worker, right? So soon in the future, if most of the work will be removed for copy-paste, and you only left the two works, define the jobs and to benchmark the outcome, and you will realize soon we don't have the chance to write code at all. So I can almost foresee that in the 5 years later, many of the corporate and the enterprise will not allow human handwriting code committing to the GitHub. So I'm the founder of KN3, so I already foreseeing that, because human is very uncontrolled and not very compliant to the policies, internal, external, but both knows how to follow the rules. So the whole story behind it is, we should think about how engineers do the problem-solving process in the future, and how AI is actually impacting our process. So think of that. If you are trying to using blockchain data, right? So I have to talk about Web3. So if you want to use the Web3 data, now you got APIs, right? You got a database ready to use like Dew and Nansen. And soon, you might write an application on Langchain or ChatGPT plugin. You might need not an API but an agent. So for many businesses like us, might deliver our product very differently to the developers. So this could be a very huge potential for many of you if you're working on the similar area. And also embedding database, could be a very promising future because that's how we bring ChatGPT into the vertical sector. So yeah, I just gave some spice and you guys can think of it.
Thank you so much. So I'm very excited to hear that Avalanche is actually creating your own GPT online. That's really something we look forward to. And it's also good to see that a lot of you are creating some customized GPT in your own domain. Now, I just want to share something also from my perspective, because I'm a data person and I've been working on data all my research career. So actually, we've been discussing quite a lot recently in academia is how AI would interplay with Web3, because one of the things we see is that the more powerful AI is, the more we would actually need Web3 for the governance part of it. Another reason is because if you realize the business competition nowadays is actually shifting from the competition of a model to actually competition in data, right? Because in the end, if 99% of a company or SME realize, oh, we are not going to actually be able to beat GPT, eventually we're going to build our business on top of it, then in the end of the day, you're going to realize the most valuable asset in your company is actually your proprietary data, right? I mean, if you have your data, suppose we are a bunch of hospitals, we form an alliance and we use our data to train the healthcare GPT, right? And offer service to others, then eventually it boils down to the question is, if we all contribute data, eventually how are we going to allocate the revenue and profit, and then how to monitor and audit all our contributions. So data is really going to become an asset. We've been talking about this for quite some years, but I think now it's getting very real. We must establish data as an emerging asset class. So there are actually a lot of interesting questions emerge when you think about data and asset, right? For example, how to price this data, right? So today we hear JP Morgan talking about how to generate synthetic data. We hear PR people talking about how to extract data from public domain. But in the end of the day, right, I mean, how data is something that is very different from any tangible asset, right? I mean, it's easily copied, duplicable. Now, how do you put a price tag to your data, right? If I compare my data with Haidong's data, right, whose data is more valuable? That's a very tricky question, right? So, but we have to solve it, otherwise it's not gonna be fair in terms of data sharing and exchange. And also we might have some other interesting topic like how to audit data and model, right? We all know financial auditing, but in the future we might encounter a scenario where we have to really tell whether a particular model has used a piece of data for training, right? Because if people come to sue one company to using their data without their authorization for training, then in the court there must be an objective method to tell whether this model actually has used the data for training. Now, a lot of these new questions are actually on the horizon of research. So this is really an exciting area, I think. Now that we've been talking about AI and Web3, I just want to let us think a bit more about, what do you think is actually the big obstacle nowadays for, let's say, more people to go from the traditional Web 2 or traditional world, financial world, into the Web 3, Metaverse, Avalanche, or Kian's world? What do you think is the obstacle? And do you think there is any way that using either AI or any other things can help to solve the problem?
So we are a traditional Web 2 company, Alibaba Cloud, so we also provide infrastructure, so we are not very happy to see people going away. But actually we are cooperating with Web 3 like partners and guests and clients. So we are providing both infrastructure and our resource. I think the biggest concern or the biggest difference or obstacle between to convert a Web 2 user to Web 3 user is the traffic portal. So usually in Web 2, the traffic portal, people are using web browsers, platforms, e-commerce platforms, like cloud platforms. This is the portal. But Web3, what would be the portal of Web3? Where will people go if you first enter the Web3 network? First you open a wallet, or first later on you start the app which everybody uses every day. So this is something we are facing right now, and we are considering what would be the transition and conversion from Web2 to Web3. What is the next traffic portal from for Web3? And to be a great portal, you need to be able to have these characteristics. Taking Alibaba e-commerce platform as an example, to be a successful web portal, you first at least need to be easily usable. Right now, if you want to open a wallet for your grandparents, it will be very difficult for them to understand what it is and how it works. Also, if you want them to put money in, and they will have a difficulty of understanding the virtual money. They want the real thing, the thing they can touch. Like maybe we could give them off-chain cold wallets, and in the cold wallets we can show them the number. So this is a way of helping them convert from Web2 to Web3, comprehending. So it's easily accessible, easily understandable. We need to become a web traffic portal. We need to be able to include everybody. So I think it's very common that previously there's a saying like Web3, DeFi, SocialFi, all these increased financial inclusivity. And if we just like kick away our grandparents' generation, that's not increased inclusivity. So I want to still making a point of inclusivity and inclusiveness and ease of usage would be the key point of the successful conversion from Web2 to Web3.
I think first we can't define too much on a micro level. They're too many. So if we talk about macro level, I think there's only one obstacle. So that is the time. So I think time will solve every problem. There are many developers in the world. I see good progression on all the layers, builders, all the factor like that. So if I look at the ecosystem, I would simply put like, if you look at Bitcoin, so it's like Beijing. But if you look at Ethereum, it's more like Shanghai. So someone like Avalanche is more like Shenzhen. So how does it happen is Bitcoin is symbolic. You're unable to shake it. It's always been there. And for Ethereum, it's a very rich ecosystem like Shanghai. But the infra is weak. So how do you improve it? So you have to build bridges on top of the road. So that's layer 2s. But for Avalanche, like if we're Shenzhen, so we're more better infra. We don't really need bridge on top. We don't need layer 2s. But we have horizontal scalable solution like subnets. So just people always think, oh, scalable solutions layer 2. So you only look at one way, vertical scaling. But how about horizontal scaling? So we have the subnets go on as horizontal scaling. So I think all these infra level, just like city. So definitely Shanghai is more developed, with more people, more companies. So if we like Shenzhen, we like early stage Shenzhen, of course, the best practice you have to do is, I think, 3 elements. One, it's to bring in more builders. 2 is to expand your communities. So in Chinese we say 招商引资和人才引入. So these are 2 aspects very important. And then the third element is certain level incentive programs. So like every government, you come to a new city, there's new industrial park, they always have some incentive program for that. So I think that's some of the very basic things to push the adoption of the market. And then if we come to a more fundamental layer about the whole Bitcoin ecosystem, like how does that leads to the next maybe bull market? To bring in confidence, why that's potential. So I always tell people that I say the Bitcoin, the story actually was written on day one. So the Bitcoin story, it's written pretty clearly. It's a payment system. So people say, oh, there's no use case, but that's the only use case, a payment system. So in the financial area, payment system is the most essentialized. And it drives by demand and supply. So it starts a payment system with supplies that people are providing calculating power into the system that they will get a reward. So the demand is that either people trade on it or transfer on it, so they use it. So if you look at the calculation difficulties, you see the demand is always increasing, but the supply is reducing. So every 4 years it will be halving. So that kind of story, is written on a book is going to happen. So I see as a fundamental layer, as Bitcoin, it's growing in that perspective. The users are growing, their wallets are growing. And then on the Ethereum perspective, it's improving. And on Avalanche level, we're expanding. So I don't see on a micro level that's so difficult. It just takes time. So that's how it happened.
I think first of all, we just got to be, looking at it from my perspective and also answering to a Prof's question. So first of all, we have to understand that not all blockchains are decentralized, and not all Web3 are decentralized, right? So we have to be very mindful of the term and the kind of things that we are trying to explain, right? So if we are looking from a more Web3 angle, I think one of the biggest challenge, maybe from Alibaba they would have the same challenge, is that revenue, how they earn their money, how is Web3 earning their money and how is Web2 earning their money. The kind of revenue structure is very different. So it become a very big challenge, for some of these biggest companies, looking at the Web3 environment. Take Red Bull for example. We work very closely with them. They use Web3 in the form of NFTs, to interact with their fan base. They are not looking at selling them, right? They are just looking at creating some buzz, at the same time finding new ways to stick them together, and grow together. So from a bigger brand perspective, if they are not looking at revenue, well, I think it's cool. Same for Starbucks. They are not looking at generating revenue from this Web3. Of course, indirectly, when they do that, the stock price could have gone up. That is an indirect, revenue for them. But from a more direct perspective, they are not charging their customer. So is it because they don't want to charge it? It's not true, because infrastructure might not be the best, revenue model is not clear. So I think revenue is one of the factors that is really stopping Web2 companies, getting full steam into the Web3 side. Of course, Web3 is still a very small industry. All these engineers that we talk about, usually they're all from Web2, So we got to be very mindful of that. And then the other thing will be about governance. Data is one thing that is really problematic. But can it be solved using AI? It's possible. So I wrote a paper about Web4, because I truly believe that Web3 is not decentralized. It is owned by people like myself or some other VCs and so forth. We invest, we call the shots most of the time. So I don't see that. But if we can add in a bit of AI, a bit of robot, to govern the whole infrastructure, then maybe this decentralized web or this Web3 concept, can be better solidified. So right now, I still find that it's revenue and governance. Thank you.
I quite agree with this point. Although there are many problems such as bad UI/UX experience, very hard to remember the private key, but I agree this will be solved by time. But governance is so important if we say how many rug pulls this year. I myself previously buy lots of NFTs. I have the belief that even this company don't run, my NFTs are there like my bags. But this year I couldn't even open the pictures. So you say actually the Azuki's founder has a not very good experience before, but people still pay so much money because they chase for the token return, something like this. So that's why when I built my company, even we already run it over 2 years, we haven't issued any token. Although I agree that token economy is so important, but I really want to prove we can provide some real use case, provide value, rather than just chase some financial return. But if we rely all of this on human, not the system, not government, I also doubt whether it's sustainable. So I agree that government is so important. Yeah.
Okay, I think another important gap between current Web3 to the massive adoption is the skill set mismatching. By the meaning of that is like for a general user, right? So in the Web2, when you know how to use OAuth to log in with Google, you can log in a lot of websites. But today, you have to keep your private key safe. You know how to use the MetaMask, and you know how to sign the right contract, smart contract, without signing the malicious one, right? So this is one of the skill set mismatching. Another skill set mismatching is for the developers. I'm supposed to know how to run my algorithm and my business logic and front end, back end, and then I can roll out my MVPs and product. But today, you have to know how to hack with smart contract. You need to hack with the testnet, mainnet, and also if you want to build a cross-chain application, you know how to hack with the bridging, oracles, and the graph. I can give a full list that you have to learn to until you can build a real product. So the barrier of entry is very high for developer tools. So this is why we have a KN3 in the place. We want to provide data and computation middle layers that you can use. You can build your application on top of that. Like you, in the 10 years ago, you built the application on Alibaba Cloud, right? It's super simple. You know you are using database, but you don't have to care about the DevOps of database. You know you are running a Node.js in a server, but you don't have to care about how this instance is running and where is the cluster deployed, right? So today on KN3, we also want the developer come here and just tell me what kind of the data you need and what kind of the business logic you want to implement. And soon, you can, on KN3, you can even build your application with natural language. Right? You can build your circle and deploy your workflow purely with a natural language assistant. So that will be a very intuitive experience of development. And I hope we can much shorten the iteration process. Maybe you have to build the application today for 3 months, but when you use KN3, 2 weeks, so that you can start to validate your idea fast and pivoting as you need.
Wow, that's really a very exciting, nice round of sharing. Now I like this analog to Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen of Apple Apps. I'm gonna learn from that. And we really talked about very great crucial point about revenue structure and these things. Now I want to add on maybe one big thing from my interaction with our local authority things. I think the other gap is about talent, obviously. All these Web3 companies that when you land in Singapore, EDB asks you to hire local talent. But as we all know, that it's very, very hard to find good talent, in the Web3 domain. And at the same time, the education, for general public is still very insufficient in terms of understanding what's happening. So that's why, last year, since the FTX incident, most of people would just, associate that with almost everything that is related to blockchain, right? So they won't be able to tell, what is FTX apart from anything else. So that's why the government, Singapore government is nowadays also very eager to really push the education of blockchain, Web3, and everything to the general public. And up until then, they're not feeling safe to actually the general public to play too much with that. So that's why we are no longer seeing these crypto ATM machines around the corner, because general public is still lacking that kind of education. So if you ask me, I would say education, talent, right? These are also the gap here. Now I have one last question, but before that, I want to see if there is any input from the audience. I mean, today we are really honored to have this great panel. I think with this panel we can talk for another 2 hours. But do you have any questions in terms of Web3, financial innovation, AI, anything from the audience? Okay, Prof and Boy just walking. You missed a very nice panel. Okay, hey, yeah, Aris, yeah.
So I have a question. So may I ask, like, what do you think is the most potential LLM models in the future, like other than ChatGPT? Which company has the most potential to have the edge?
Which LLM is most promising, right?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna ask which token is gonna be more promising. Anyone, it's not necessarily everyone, just anybody wants to answer.
So I think for the technology industry, the most proud thing we have is the open source community. As you can see, for previously DeepMind, AlphaFold, when AlphaFold come out, they're also closed source. And after a while, the open source community chase up, forced DeepMind, DeepFold open up. So I believe the next heroic thing, the heroic LLM will come from the open source community. So as also, as you know, ChatGPT for architecture is already outside, leaked by all kinds of means, and it's already out. So we have a clear knowledge of how it's built, and also we have the capacity. Everybody has the capacity as long as you purchase the A100, H100 graphic cards. And also the training material will be the key part. And I'm sure English is not the only language we focus on. There are so many languages, and every language has different culture. And all these will be derived from different versions. And all these will come to the open source community. So we are no longer a centralized enterprise. We're a decentralized open source community, which contribute to the advancement of technology. So it doesn't matter if it's a large language model or mid-journey, stable diffusion. At the end of the day, things will be on the same page with the help of open source community.
So you really believe in open source and all these things. Maybe tomorrow we're gonna see Haidong GPT. Anybody else want to chip in? Okay, does that answer the question? So I think we are all like strong believer in open source and decentralization here. Okay, all right. I think we actually end up very just nice. I mean 3:30. And let's thank again of this wonderful panel for sharing. Yeah. Oh, we have a group photo. Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks again for Modal for organizing